So that is the kind of basic thing that happened after the Buddha's awakening, and how he enjoyed that, the liberation, the final freedom. And it has some kind of amazing results. The fact that you can sit for 7 days without moving and just experiencing that bliss, it shows you a little bit about the profundity of that kind of liberation, final freedom from all oppression and problems. And then, of course, the story goes on, because it doesn't stop there. Fortunately for us, if it stopped there, we wouldn't be here today. So it carries on. So after 7 days, the Buddha came out from that stillness, that samadhi, and went from the Bodhi tree to the goat herd's banyan tree. This is the Nirodha, the Ajapala Nirodha tree. Nigroda tree. Nirodha means cessation tree. That tree wouldn't exist. So we have the Ajapala Nigroda tree. There too, he sat cross-legged for 7 days without moving, experiencing the bliss of freedom. You can imagine the amount of bliss, and bliss upon bliss upon bliss. And then a Brahmin devoted to mystical mantras went up to the Buddha, exchanged pleasantries with him, and said, "Good Gautama, how is one a Brahmin? What are the qualities that make one a Brahmin?" So here we can see like a contrast between the Brahmins of India who were devoted to mystical mantras. Humkara Brahmana, I think the Pali word is here. They say the word is hum is like mystical mantras. And so this is what the Brahmins were famous for, reciting mantras, doing rituals and these kind of things. But maybe he is doubting a little bit whether he's on the right track. Do you really become a Brahmin just by saying mystical stuff? Or is there something more to it? And seeing the Buddha, seeing someone who obviously stands out a little bit. You can imagine the Buddha straight after the awakening. It would be an awesome sight to see that kind of person. You remember from the suttas that people who met the Buddha after his awakening, it's like, wow, they see the Buddha. What happened to you? I was going to say, Venerable, what happened to you? This is amazing. I have never seen anyone quite like this. And so you naturally are inspired just by the sight of seeing someone like that. So what are the qualities that make one a Brahmin? Seeing the significance of this, the Buddha uttered a heartfelt exclamation. The Brahmin who has shut out bad qualities, who does not murmur mystical mantras, but is free from flaws and self-controlled, who has reached final knowledge and has fulfilled the spiritual life, he may rightly proclaim the highest doctrine, having no pride about anything in the world. So this is the Buddha's reply to this Brahmin, being free from the flaws and self-controlled. This is like having eliminated all the defilements of the mind, not having anything of this anymore. Self-controlled is not, this is kind of interesting because we often think we have to be self-controlled and restrained on the Buddhist path. But here, the idea of self-controlled is a natural thing. It's a natural consequence of being the Buddha. And so ideally, self-control is not something you do, it's something that happens because you understand things in the right way. And the same thing with us. We don't want to do too much, try too hard, but we want to allow these things to happen naturally if possible. And then having reached the highest knowledge, having no pride about anything in the world, this is a real Brahmin. So being a Brahmin suddenly becomes much more demanding. Not enough to say hum, you have to do much more than that. Which is kind of good. So I'm not sure, I can't remember now why exactly I included this here, but I thought maybe it was kind of nice. One of the reasons is because this translation you see here is a bit unusual, and it depends on a bit of research into the Vedas to understand the humkara Brahmana, because it is not how it is traditionally translated. This is something that Bhante Sujato came up with, and I think he has a very good point about this. All right. So that is the account at the goat-herd's banyan tree. So I'm just going to go through this fairly quickly. And after 7 days, the Buddha came out from that stillness too, and went from the goat-herd's banyan tree to a powder puff tree. This is the Muchalinda tree. So this is also the famous Muchalinda Naga. You know, everyone knows the Muchalinda Naga? Anyone does not know the Muchalinda Naga? Wow, there's a few who don't know the Muchalinda Naga. Okay, so sometimes you will see the Buddha statue, and you see it like he has a big kind of snake coming over him. Yeah, that's the Muchalinda Naga. And that depicts what happened after the Buddha's awakening, the Muchalinda Naga coming out, protecting the Buddha. It's not the original Naga, or the pond, yeah. It's the wrong place, you reckon? Huh? Yeah, yeah. Maybe you're probably right. Probably this has been made up because it kind of is going to fit the story in the suttas, probably. So yeah, I'm not sure about that. So there too, he sat cross-legged for 7 days without moving, experiencing the bliss of freedom. Just going from tree to tree, experiencing bliss of freedom. Just then an unseasonal storm was approaching, bringing 7 days of rain, cold winds and clouds. Muchalinda, the Dragon King, came out from his abode. He encircled the body of the Buddha with 7 coils and spread his large hood over his head, thinking, "May the Buddha not be hot or cold, nor be bothered by horseflies or mosquitoes, by the wind or the burning sun, or by creeping animals or insects." It's kind of interesting, isn't it? The dragons come out and protect you when you are a Buddha. Did this really happen? Do you think the Dragon King came out and protected the Buddha? Yes? You think yes? Okay. Yeah? Maybe. Some people say maybe, some say yes. Yeah, I think maybe it's true. One of the interesting things about the history of religions around the world, not only Buddhism, but in a lot of religions, is the idea that the devas can protect you. You find that is a cross-cultural thing. You find that in India before the time of the Buddha. You find it in religions like Christianity. You find this. The idea of angels looking after you, the archangels. This very common Christian idea as well. And angels, what are angels? Well, they're obviously devas, right? They're the same kind of thing. They are bright beings, etc. And so I think it may very well be the case that the devas will look after you. And especially if you are a Buddha, then the devas will probably be very interested in looking after you. So something like this may well have happened. I don't know if this particular incident happened, because this here is more like a story. I don't think the Buddha himself ever says that he was protected by a Naga king, so stories are always a little bit uncertain, but the principle that devas can look after you, I think, is kind of fairly well established, which is kind of nice. So how do you get deva to look after you? Shui, what do you reckon? What is the way to get the devas? It's kind of nice to think the devas are looking after you, right? It's kind of a nice feeling. So how do we get the devas to look after us? And the way is to live well, keep your precepts, be kind, be compassionate, have metta. These are the qualities that make the devas love you. Isn't that nice to have the devas being your friend, the devas looking after you, the devas having compassion for you? You find this in the suttas in a number of places, the idea of the devas having compassion for you. So if you want to have the devas to look after you, live really, really well, be very kind, be a very caring and compassionate person, and then the consequences can be that. After 7 days, when he knew the sky was clear, Muchalinda unraveled his coins from the Buddha's body and transformed himself into a young Brahmin. He then stood in front of the Buddha, raising his joined palms in veneration, in Anjali. Seeing the significance of this, the Buddha uttered a heartfelt exclamation. Seclusion is bliss for the contented, who sees the teaching that they have learned. Kindness to the world is happiness, for one who is harmless to living beings. Dispassion for the world is happiness, for one who overcomes worldly pleasures. But removing the conceit, I am, this indeed is the highest bliss. So again, really nice verses, really kind of meaningful verses, and they all have to do with this idea of freedom, of course, in one way or another. Seclusion is bliss for the contented, who sees the teaching they have learned. If you want to be in seclusion, you have to be content. It's difficult to live kind of in a little kuti, or live at the root of a tree, or live far away from other people, not having anything to hold on to in the world, unless you are content. A contented person is someone who enjoys seclusion. Why? Well, because you haven't got craving for all the things in the world. If you have a lot of craving for the things in the world, how can you live in seclusion? You want to live in the world because you want to enjoy those cravings, satisfy those cravings. So contentment is really a prerequisite for withdrawing from the world, living in seclusion, living far away. If someone lives consistently secluded, you can assume that they are going to be a very content kind of person. Not only does it happen naturally for the contented, but actually the contented person wants to be in seclusion. They want to be away. That's bliss for them. Why? Because the world is no longer meaningful for them. The world is only meaningful because it satisfies your craving. But if there is no craving to be satisfied, the world loses its meaning. You want to be a place where you can enjoy that contentment. And that happens in seclusion, not in the world. And so contentment has this double thing. You have to be content to be in seclusion, but not only that, you actually want to be in seclusion once you have that contentment. The two goes together, depending, of course, on the profundity of contentment. The contentment, like everything else in Buddhism, comes in a large number of degrees. And here we're seeing a very profound sense of contentment, of course. And then you have this additional rider, the one who sees the teachings that they have learned. First, you learn the teaching. Based on that learning, you see the teachings. First you learn, then you practice the path, and eventually you gain insight. That's the seeing of the teachings. So that seclusion is especially powerful once you have seeing the teachings, of course, especially here for the Buddha. Then you have kindness to the world is happiness for one who is harmless to living beings. Again, this is one of those, I think, very significant and very important ways of thinking about the world. Kindness is happiness. Understanding this is just so important for our lives, because once you understand that real happiness emerges out of kindness, emerges out of living morally, emerges out of being generous, all of these kind of things, then what else are you going to do? Very often we think that there is some happiness to be found by doing the wrong kind of things or doing silly things or whatever. But actually that is always an illusion. It is not really true. Real happiness, the real freedom, and this is what I will point to later on as we go on in this retreat, is that actually there is a degree of freedom in being kind. There's a freedom inside, a freedom from the oppression of the unwholesome things that arise out of lack of kindness. So kindness is a felt state of freedom. And that's why it is also happiness, because freedom and happiness are synonymous with each other. They are basically revolving around the same idea. So kindness is happiness. So anyone who is unkind, they are working against their own happiness. There's this beautiful verse found in the Kosala Samyutta where the King Pasenadi goes to the Buddha and he says to the Buddha, anyone who lives immorally, lives akusala, is an enemy to themselves. It's a beautiful idea. If you treat other people badly, you're not their enemy. Well, you might be their enemy as well, but you are your own enemy by treating other people bad. It's kind of turning things completely upside down. Usually we think, oh, that's my enemy, I'm going to treat them bad. No, you are your own enemy if you treat other people bad. Why? Because you will have to bear the results of those bad actions. You are treating yourself badly by doing bad things to others. And at the same time, by the same token, if you treat other people well, if you are kind to others, you are your own best friend. That is how you are a friend to yourself, by treating other people well. It's kind of interesting. These days people think, I must be kind to myself, go to the spa and just lie down, have compassion for myself. And there is some truth to that. Of course we should be kind to ourselves. But the Buddha really says that, or King Pasena in this case, and the Buddha agrees with him, to be kind to yourself, be kind to others. This is kind of the fundamental way of doing it. So kindness to the world is happiness for one who is harmless to living beings. Dispassion for the world is happiness for one who overcomes worldly pleasures. When you overcome the worldly pleasures, the ordinary pleasures of the world, the karma, as it's called in the suttas, then you don't have that passion anymore for the world. That becomes your happiness, the giving up of that passion for the world. The world is no longer interesting. That becomes the real happiness in your life, far more profound than the pleasures of the world. This is the real happiness. This is where it really starts to bite, where it really starts to be something special. Dispassion for the world is happiness for one who overcomes worldly pleasures. But removing the conceit, I am, this indeed is the highest bliss. This is the kind of profundity of the Buddhist teaching. The idea that I am is a conceit. It's a very useful thing to remember. The thought or the feeling I am is already a kind of conceit. Usually we think that conceit means I am better or something like that, but I am is a conceit. Why? Because it doesn't correspond to any reality. That's why it is a conceit. So getting rid of the whole idea I am, this is the highest kind of bliss. And again, very, very counterintuitive. Most people in the world, they try to create a positive I am. They try to build up the I am. They try to build up the sense of identity. I am important. I am whatever. Actually, that reminds me, Victor. I remember I saw. Is that Victor at the back there? Yeah. Okay. My eyesight is a bit bad, so I think I see Victor. I'm not entirely sure. I think So that's good. So I haven't got but these are just reading glasses. But so I remember last year I saw you in Bangkok. You didn't see me, but I saw you. You were at the UNDV in Bangkok. Yeah. I was sitting in the crowd, and then suddenly Victor comes on the stage and gives a talk on the stage up there. So I remember seeing you there. I wanted to wave to you from the crowd, but it was too difficult, so I just let it be. And so that's kind of a nice thing to do. To kind of go there. But even those kind of things, you do them without a sense of I am. You don't make too much out of it. You're doing a service to whoever is there, but you not really make too much out of that at the time. So it's kind of very counter to the way the world thinks. That the world wants to make a solid I, but giving up that sense of I is actually what it truly is happiness. There's nothing more to defend. You don't have to defend yourself anymore. If people call you an idiot, they don't even know. You don't even know what they're talking about. It's got nothing to do with you. Maybe your 5 khandhas are stupid, but that's not you anyway. So who cares? So it's kind of nothing to defend, nothing to prove anymore in the world. Just go through the world, not really, kind of like just like the wind or the without any movement or any friction. There's no friction with you anymore in the world because there's no I there. You move in a kind of peaceful way through the world. This is the highest bliss when you give up the idea of I am. Very kind of counter to the way we normally think about things. People often ask me, how do you give up the conceit I am? How do I do that? People ask. Well, usually the answer is that, first of all, it's very profound, giving up the conceit I am. But actually, the way to give it up is by practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. Every step you take on that path, you are giving up a little bit of I am right there. The sense of identity is being reduced by practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. That is the right way of thinking about this. Slowly, slowly, slowly moving in that direction. Anyway, I I think I included these things because I just like these verses. It's got nothing to do really with, of course it has to do with freedom, but not directly. But I thought, yeah, just put those verses in there because they kind of look nice to me. So that's why I put them in there. The nice thing about being the teacher, you can do whatever you want, you see. Put it in there, okay, it will be fine. So, okay, let's carry on. So now we have looked at the Buddha's story after his awakening, and then I have cut out a large section of that chapter, and I move on to a later part of this chapter. It goes via the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the setting in motion the wheel of the Dhamma, the Anattalakkana Sutta, the characteristics of non-self, all of these things, goes through all of these beautiful suttas. But then further down the track, the Buddha starts to ordain people. People start to be attracted to Buddhism. And now is where we start to understand how freedom is also the motivation for people in going forth, in becoming Buddhists, in becoming ordained, becoming monks and nuns. Is one of the drivers, one of the motivating factors on the path, that you are looking for freedom in a certain way. So I want to look at, not very detailed, because it's all kind of nice stories, but at least briefly at how this happens, this idea of going forth. And one of the very famous stories is the story of Yasa. Yasa literally means famous, so I guess he was famous. So this is the name of this person. So let's see how Yasa's going forth happens. So at that time in Benares, this is Varanasi, where we were recently in India, there was a gentleman called Yasa, the son of a wealthy merchant, who had been brought up in great comfort. You see this all the time, people being brought up in great comfort, and they think that won't be able to take the monastic life because of that. Have all of you heard the story of how Anuruddha became a monk? I told this before here, but no, you haven't heard it? Are you sure? Yeah. Have you heard it? Some of you have heard it. Some who have not heard it? Wow, okay, quite a few. Okay, I'll tell the story because it's kind of a cute story, and I've only got 3 minutes. I got to tell it very quickly. So this is similar to this because Anuruddha also was brought up in great comfort, and a lot of comfort. And so the story is, I haven't got it here as part of this. The story is that the Buddha comes back to his family, the Second Republic, and everyone is really inspired. One of our kinsmen has become the Buddha, with the greatest spiritual genius. Wow, the Buddha is here. And so they say, in every family, at least one person should go forth. Actually, one young man, this was before the nuns' order, so one young man should go forth from every family. So every family has one gone forth, and then there is the family of Anuruddha and Mahanama. They were two brothers. They were the cousins of the Buddha, same family, but they were two brothers, And so one day, Mahanama, he goes to Anuruddha and says, well, brother, one of us should go forth. Everyone else, all the family, someone is going forth. Our family, no one is going forth, so one of us should go forth. And then Anuruddha says to Mahanama, well, I have been brought up in so much comfort. I'm so spoiled. He doesn't say that, but that's kind of the underlying tone. I'm really, really spoiled that I cannot go forth. It's too difficult for me, living at the root of a tree and all kinds of, wow, there's no way I can do that. So he says, Mahanama, you go forth, Mahanama. And the story of Anuruddha was, that's the famous story Ajahn Brahm tells all the time about the nutty cakes. The nutty cake story, So Anuruddha was so spoiled that he would, every day, please come in, enter. Don't sit down because now the Dhamma is being taught. You will enjoy this. So actually, this is not so much Dhamma, this is the story. But anyway, it's a nice story. So he was so spoiled, and whenever he goes to him, Mum, he would say, oh, Mum, I need some cakes. Every time she would give him cakes. Is that a good mother who does that? Every time you ask for cake, you get cakes? I'm not sure if that's the right way of bringing up a child. But anyway, this is what happened in this kind of family. Every time he gave a cake. And one day, there weren't any cakes. So his mother says, nutty cake. And nutty means there isn't. But Anuruddha has never heard the word there isn't. So he says, yes, please, give me nutty cakes. it means there aren't any cakes, but he thinks there's a kind of cakes, the nutty cakes. So this is kind of how spoiled he was, just to give you an idea of how spoiled it was. So he says to Mahanama, his cousin, there's no way I can go forth. I'm too spoiled. I'm too soft. I've been brought up in too much comfort. You go forth. So Mahanama says, okay, I will go forth, but in that case, you will have to do all the duties of the household life. And I said, what? What are you talking about? The duties of the household life. He's never heard about duties before. He's only heard about cakes. Yeah, so he and so he says, well, what are those duties of the household life? Well, the duties of the household life are when the spring comes, you have to plow the fields. After plowing the fields, you have to take all the rocks out of the field. After plowing the field, you have to till the field to make the kind of the trenches. Yeah. After kind of tilling or plowing, or what is it called when you make furrows or whatever it is that you make on the fields, then you have to put seeds into those furrows. After putting the seeds in, you have to irrigate the field. They get the water in. After irrigating the field, you have to drain the field. After draining your field, you have to weed the field. After weeding the field, you have to reap the crops. After reaping the crops, you have to thresh the things, thresh it or whatever it's called, getting the thing out. And you have to winnow the seeds. And when all the seeds are winnowed, you have to put them in the storage, for next season. And as soon as they are in the storage for the next season, you have to start plowing again. He says, what? Says Anuruddha, when does the word stop? When does the work stop? He said, the work never stops. While our fathers and grandfathers were working, they died right there. And then the next generation had to carry on. And then Anuruddha said, well, in that case, I will go forth and you stay in the home life. That's the story of Anuruddha. So that's kind of very interesting little story. So based on that, now is a good time to do some meditation or have a break, whatever you want. So let's take 5 minutes break. Okay, so let us do some more questions and comments or anything, if anyone wants to say anything. Yeah, please.
Yeah, good morning, Ajahn.
Good morning.
So, talking about kindness, so sometimes there's time where we have to decline at a certain time. So, because sometimes being too kind, we are being taken advantage of, and there is a time where we have to decline. But when I decline something, I feel a bit guilty, or it can be being guilt-tripped by the other party. Yeah. So how do we be firm to take care of our own kindness? How do we handle it?
Okay, so be kind only if you feel that there is no pressure to be kind. If you feel that there is pressure to be kind, then don't do it. And very often, as you say, that people take advantage. That's a bit like there is pressure to be kind if people take advantage of you. One of the things I have observed with Ajahn Brahm is that if he feels that you are expecting something from him, he won't do it. Yeah, and it's one of those things is that because then the kindness is no fun anymore. The kindness is fun when it comes from you and it comes naturally because you want to be kind. Otherwise, it's like we're just living up to other people's expectations, and that doesn't have the same power. So that is a chance, and you can say no. People don't have the right to expect anything from you. It's up to you whether you want to do the right thing or not. So it doesn't mean you become nasty towards them. It just means that you have compassion, but without actually doing anything. And it's for them to give up that expectation of you being kind. So absolutely. So if you feel that you're taken advantage of, or people have expectations, then it's very often best not to do anything at all. I would say. Yeah.
Good morning, Ajahn. I was wondering if you could explain a bit more about dispassion for the world, because I think it's easy to go too far and for one to become cold by cutting off from the world.
Absolutely. So this passion for the world here is not something that you do, it's something that happens as a natural result of the path. If you are doing it, it's not real dispassion. Then it's more like aversion or something negative. This is a result of deep samadhi. Before deep samadhi, it's impossible to have dispassion for the world. This is when you see the world as it actually is, you see the suffering, you see the dukkha, and your mind turns away from these things. These are very profound things. This is not something that you know, for ordinary people to do or anything like that. So you will know when it happens naturally. It will become very, very obvious. Oh, I really don't want to have anything more to do with the world. You will run off to Perth, become a nun at the Masada monastery, bang, straight away, because you have dispassion for the world, like a deep dispassion. No more craving, no more interest in the worldly things. So absolutely, this is not about, becoming uncaring or anything like that. And one of the strange things that even if you do have dispassion for the world in the real way, you actually become much more caring, much more compassionate. This is the weird thing here. Because you don't have that attachment to the world, because the world is not really interesting to you, you are seeing the world in a much more neutral and balanced kind of way. You have the upekkha, and because of that you can be compassionate in a much more effective way, much more powerful way. First of all, because you really understand. Secondly, because your mind is not biased. You're not doing this to get anything out of people. You're doing it for the right reasons, and so it becomes actually a higher kind of dispassion. So you have the ability to withdraw if you want to, but when you engage with very high and pure qualities of the mind. So know that, find that balance in your life, and get things right, and you'll be okay.
I just want to share about when we talk about Deva, right?
Please, that's interesting.
I think almost 20 years ago, I took a course to be a facilitator. And part of the activity that we had to jump down. They make like a stage up, maybe 3-4 meters up. And then everybody had to jump down. And there would be people, 2 rows of people, and cross arms to receive you when you drop. And I was kind of, I had like a fear of height. And it took me a while, to get up there. But when I dropped, when you have to come like backward to fall. And when I was falling, I didn't feel like I, suddenly dropped to where they're receiving. I felt like, it came down very smoothly, like, somebody was, carrying me down very smoothly. So I thought maybe that was the Deva was helping. I felt like very smooth, and I felt very good, coming down slowly backwards like this. And the people, they received me, say, they were surprised. Well, I was, scared.
How old were you at the time?
Not that old.
Were you very virtuous as a child? Very virtuous person?
About 20 years ago, when I was seminary then.
Seminary then, okay.
Yeah, I was seminary then, they have a court.
Okay.
This activity was to see that you trust.
Yeah.
You had the trust with the group.
Yeah.
If you had the trust, then you could when you fall, you trust that they will receive you, not to hit the ground.
So that's when you find out whether you have real friends or not.
That was kind of, it was feeling really nice. I was coming down, and I felt like something was helping me down. Very nicely.
Yeah.
So really good feeling.
Good. Yeah. Thank you for that. So, anyone else would like to say anything over here? Yeah.
Ajahn, the word seclusion in the paragraph, does it cover physical? It covers physical seclusion, or does it also cover mental seclusion?
Does anyone have the Pali? Can look up the Pali word. Wanyin, have you got the Pali available? Usually you are there. I don't know if you are you're giving up. This is the that last verse under the.
Because this word seclusion is mentioned in a lot of suttas.
Yeah, viveka. Okay, viveka. Right. Yes. Yeah. So viveka is viveka. Thank you. So there's a couple of words for seclusion. There's viveka. There's patisalana. There's a few words like that. So here we have viveka. It seems. So viveka usually has two meanings in the sutras. There's what is called the kaya viveka and chitta viveka. And kaya viveka usually means seclusion of the body, physical seclusion. So that means like removing yourself from the world, and living in a hut or living in the forest or whatever. And usually that's the preliminary step. And from that preliminary step comes then the chitta viveka, the seclusion of the mind. And the seclusion of the mind usually means seclusion from the five hindrances and the sensual pleasures of the world. That's usually what that refers to. But it usually goes in that sequence. So sometimes people, you may think that it's possible to go straight to the chitta viveka without the kaya viveka, just have the seclusion of the mind. And sometimes that can happen, that you can, maybe go on a retreat, you don't have full seclusion, and you may get some seclusion from the hindrances, but usually the two are closely linked to each other. And for example, when you read the Anapanasati Sutta, the Sutta on mindfulness of breathing, it always starts with going to the foot of a tree, going to an empty hut, going to a forest, because that is seclusion. So mindfulness of breathing, real meditation, usually happens in seclusion. From that physical seclusion, then comes the mental seclusion afterwards, the two building on each other. Is that what you are talking about, or did you mean something else?
So therefore, if it is written in the sutta, can we assume that it applies to both, when both forms of seclusion?
Yeah, I think you can, especially in this case here, because here you are talking about someone who is contented. It means that they don't have many defilements. Someone who has learned the teachings. I mean, here we are probably, the Buddha is talking about himself here, and his insight into the into the Dhamma, into the world. So usually, yes, you can understand both cases. It depends a bit on the context. All the problem with the Pali is that everything is contextual, and words only have meaning depending on how they are used in a sentence or a paragraph. A good translator doesn't translate word for word, translates paragraph for paragraph or sentence for sentence or something like that. So it is always contextual to some extent.
Thank you, Ban.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn.